Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 24th episode of the Antpod. Today, we are taking the age-old question up: exotics versus native. It's the question of the century, the question everyone asked about, and the question everyone in Europe don't care about, and all in America, well, do care about because the rules are different. I do want to say that all of you listening in on YouTube, if you are feeling it's annoying to sit with the app open and all of this, we do put this podcast out on Spotify, and there will be a link in the description for Anchor, where you can be redirected to different audio platforms where this podcast is coming out on. But today, we are sitting with Casey and with Antimatters, Jake. I keep calling you Antimatters, Jake. We're sitting with Jake and Casey, and I feel like you two are the complete opposite. Casey, you're locked down in America with very little access to, anything but native ants. And Antimatter is Jake. Jake, you are at the complete opposite. You can get leafcutters, you can get Tetsumorium by Karen Atom, you can get pretty much whatever can come to the United Kingdom without dying. So that is the topic for today. Now, I think we should start with Casey, because Casey, Ants Canada has made this big exotic versus native a very big thing, because I think it depends a lot of where you come from. In Europe, we all keep exotics quite regularly, just because, well, if winter comes and your ants escape, they just die. In not Canada, but in the Philippines, where Ants Canada is recording, it's a lot the opposite. If your exotic ants escape, they just become native ants, or at least they start surviving. But Casey, can you explain a little bit about your opinions about everything and how you're locked down to only keeping natives?
So ideally, I'm a dreamer, so I would like to keep exotic ants, but in the US that is very hard. You can't even keep ants that are outside of your state. You have to apply for a permit to transfer ants across state borders, and you have to do it by species. And so if you were to move your 5 colonies and they're all different species across state borders, you would have to apply for each one of those species. And so I think the law is there to prevent any invasives. And I mean, mostly I think most people in the US are team native, because we have seen really bad Solenopsis invasiveness and Argentine ants, and the same ants that everybody else around the world deals with. But I personally I would like to have some exotics. I would like to have some ants that are actually outside of my state, which is possible, but there's a lot of paperwork to go through for that to happen. And so I think most people in the US would be team native, just because if you're not, then you're stuck dreaming.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was doing a podcast or after recording, but we talked a little bit about the black market of, the States, because you can actually get access to different ant colonies even though you're not allowed. Do you know anything about that? Is there a black market where you can, get ants illegally around?
I mean, there's always eBay and Etsy, but I have seen a lot less as of the last couple of years. I think they've caught on, but because I Google it, I look it up just to see what's there. Be like, oh, someone's selling Neoponera on eBay, or somebody's selling honeypots from New York. And the honeypots aren't native in New York, so there obviously is a black market there. But I think it's dwindling, and as more people apply for APHIS permits and things like that, I think the rules might loosen up in the future to. I mean, optimistically, I think the rules would lighten up in the future to pretty much only ban certain species like Solenopsis geminata and Invicta, or other very invasive generalist species. Whereas I think if I got some Attitexana Texas leafcutter ants, if I applied for an APHIS permit for those, there's, I think, a bit more likely of a chance for me to be able to have those.
And I think you're right. You're having the right end right here. I think what has happened is throughout the Argentinians and the Solenopsis going crazy. The law have just gone all in and said, you know what, nothing can pass through. Where in Europe we are slowly adding Solenopsis geminalis to the list of things that can't be sold. I think I heard at least in the Netherlands or something. So I think it's kind of the opposite way. It's just I'm guessing in a few years maybe they meet if it loosens up a little bit in the United States and the more invasive species slowly get ticked off in Europe. But I think it's very interesting to hear your thoughts because you sound like you are keeping natives because that's what you can, but you are team exotics because you want to keep exotics. That's rightly understand, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much. And I think the rule is there for like, because we do have quite a bit of agriculture in America, and I think the rule is there for invasive plants as well. Because it's like my brother's really into plants, and he like in order for him to get specific types of plants, he has to apply for the same permit I would have to get ants across the border, well, state borders. It's the exact same paperwork. Like when I got my honeypots from Vern, I got a copy of that paperwork and I read through it, and it is plants and insects basically. They kind of lumped them together because insects come in on plants a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
I think that's the purpose of the ban of moving plants and insects across borders.
It's just crazy how locked down it is compared to Europe. And I think that leads a little bit into Jake, because Jake, you are keeping all. I mean, I'm also keeping all sorts, but I'm trying to keep it down this episode. I talk too much. So Jake, you are of course in Europe, and exotics is a whole other thing. How many exotics compared to natives do you keep, and can you share your thoughts on the whole topic?
Well, on the exotics to natives ratio, I think, to be fair, I've probably got about 5 native ants, I think. Yeah. And then 20 exotics.
God
But
damn.
I don't know, I'm team native, but I do have a lot of exotics. I do think the natives, where I am anyway, you got loads of Myrmica rubra and like Lasius niger. I do love my Myrmica rubra. They've got to be my favourite species in the world, really, and they're native. Although I do love a few exotics. Yeah, I've got them from every continent, I guess. And the
Yeah.
laws, though, it's just you can have anything you want. Basically, there's nothing that you can't have. So, well, yeah, as long as you can get hold of it, like nicely, I hope. Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
of
pretty
course,
open.
on pod 14, we talked about keeping in not invasive species, but inbreeding species. And I think one of the big things is if your exotic colonies or invasive colony escape, you can have a serious problem. And you are keeping Tetramarum bicarinatum with thousands of queens. Can you defend yourself?
Well, you do have to be super careful. And I've studied like environmental science and everything at college and all of that stuff. So I've got the case studies of like, this is what goes wrong if you release like the wrong animal in the wrong place. So I'm extra careful, but that's why I am kind of team native though, because if your natives get out, nothing's really happened. But if your exotics get out, you could be in a lot of trouble then. So, and you
Yeah,
don't really want to be polluting the environment with your kind of crazy exotic inbreeding ants. Yeah.
so what would you do if you had a massive escape with thousands of queen potentially on the loose?
Well, that'd be at first I'd pull out the Hoover because you just kind of have to. There'd be no way that you could pluck up just a few, if you get what I mean, at a time. You'd have to just hoover up as many as you can, and then I'd lay sugar water traps with a little bit of borax, like washing powder, in the sugar water, and that normally finishes them off, any escapees.
Yeah, and I think you're
You do
completely
have to
right
be
there.
willing to kill them. Like, you have to, if you've got exotics, you do have to be willing to, destroy them if it went bad.
Yeah, you're saying that you're very well said. So Casey was supposed to read up a comment now, but I can hear Casey has a little bit of problems.
Yeah, I just can't see them.
So you can't see. I've added all the comments and you can't see any of them.
Nope.
Lovely.
My first one is when you at CT is the first thing I can see.
That's strange. Oh well, I'll read it out then. The Ant Whisperer, of course, we have asked the viewers of their thoughts, and let's just go through the stats. We asked the age-old question, which team and why. Natives plus exotics has 81%, and native only has 19%. So 1-5 split, which is actually more on Team Native than I thought. But we have the Ant Whisperer saying, I'd say native plus exotics. Natives are optimal for ant keepers, new to the hobby, but exotics adds diversity to the hobby, and some places don't have a diverse range of natives. To me, at least, it's intriguing to see and learn about other species, other religions, See, this is why I don't read out comments. Dyslexic killing me. From other regions and their own unique adaptations. And I think that comment is very well said. Again, the last bit was, to me, it's intriguing to see and learn about species from other regions and their own unique adaptations, like leafcutters, like bull ants, and exactly, all of these totally different species.
There are so many cool specialized species of ants, and I definitely think we'll go further as a hobby if we kind of learn to appreciate all of them. Like the snakes and reptile hobby, they keep snakes and lizards from everywhere.
So we just had some major technical difficulties with our Discord server just crashing and everything just stopping. So I just read a comment out loud, and Casey, you were talking about snakes, something with snakes. Can you remember where you left off?
Yeah. So
all right.
What I
So
was getting at.
Go.
What I was getting at was like in the reptile hobby, they keep snakes and lizards from all over the world, and I think we would go further in the ant keeping hobby if we tried to do something similar and figured out which species are, I guess there's really no way to figure out without like ants getting out, but like we do know what the key species are that are super invasive, and if we refrain from keeping those, even those big numbers are cool. Lots and lots of ants in a formicarium is cool no matter what, but you get keepers that are inexperienced, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, or people who are irresponsible, and you're going to get that in whatever hobby you're in. But I think we would do better as a hobby to stop keeping invasive species, and just, you can keep Geminata if you live where Geminata live, but if you're somewhere where it's a super invasive species and things like that, I think we shouldn't keep species like that.
I think that's quite well said. I remember Static talked about Scutellaris. What are they called?
Cremogasta.
Yes, Cremogasta Scutellaris. Yeah, he made an update and he talked about how they were slowly getting closer and closer, and nuptial flights were happening higher and higher up through Europe. And I think that's maybe a species that then should, from now, be forbidden to actually keep, because it seems like if the colony escapes, first of all, they survive hibernation. They have adapted well enough to survive. And worse, they can actually outcompete the normal ants. And they can also have nuptial flights because the general amount of ants are slowly going up. I mean, this can happen over 20 to 100 years. It can happen so incredibly slow. But if we ant keepers let them loose by mistakes and they actually escape, because I've heard quite a few stories of them managing to escape, where the queen is relocated incredibly quickly. And that way, big colonies have actually escaped. And now they're actually in the zone where they could start to just have nuptial flights and completely be invasive. So I definitely think you're right with what you were saying, Casey, with it's different from one species to another. But the big problem is just try to explain that to the government. Can you allow that ant but not that ant?
Yeah. So like even snakes and reptiles, we have invasive boa constrictors and pythons in parts of my country because hurricanes hit pet stores or irresponsible pet owners just, I can't take care of this anymore, goodbye. You know, they just put it out in the wild hoping
it's the same with cats. It's the same with getting kittens,
cats
right?
Are awful. Cats are awful for the environment. I love to them to death, but they are little killing machines.
And they can just thrive living near humans and getting food off humans and then killing rats and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean that's the thing. It's never good. The thing is, the problem is just the inexperienced ant keepers or the lazy ant keepers that mess up. And that's where I think it's the right call to have everything locked down in the United States, within some degree. But then again, my leaf cutters would never ever harm anything because they would just die without their humidity. I guess it's just one of those things. I don't think there will ever be a right answer, just because in Europe, as long as hibernation comes, everything will die. But then again, we do have Pheidole pallidula in Denmark, but only discovered inside houses. So they have not been discovered outside houses, but they have living in houses. So somehow they've been imported through plants or whatever and have started living in houses. But they can't survive.
One of the most common species in the United States is definitely Tetramorium immigrans. And they're not technically native here, but you know, they got brought over with everything else in, you know, way back in the day, and they've pretty much become native. There is like you know, me and Vern were talking about going out into the desert and going ant hunting and everything, and even way out there, away from all the people and everything, I'll be looking at the ground and just see Tetramorium running around with no human habitation within like 100 miles.
Yeah.
They're just there everywhere because
shows the danger though. I guess it's only been maybe 200 years maximum, and they've managed to kind of conquer the American continent.
Yeah. They are literally everywhere.
I just thought I saw. Sorry, I just zoned out. I thought I saw an earthworm within my leaf cutters. Damn, that confused me. It was just a stick. It just looked okay. Well, I think Matthew also sums it up quite nicely what we've just discussed so far. I see it from both sides. I see both sides of the issue. If it's done right and responsible, I see no problem with it. But not everyone is doing it responsible, and accidents can happen. I think that is the true nature. And if I lose a colony, winter will kill them. If Casey loses a colony, well, I don't know if you have winter where you're located, but
oh yeah, we get pretty heavy winters. Utah, my state, is known for the best snow, according to us. But
well, then you're allowed to keep exotics under my conditions.
But yeah, I think not much will live through the winter out here.
Oh, do you have many invasive species then? I'm guessing they haven't made it that successfully.
We don't have any Solenopsis that isn't native. As far as I'm aware, I haven't seen any iNaturalist posts or anything like that saying that we have Solenopsis geminata. We do have Solenopsis molesta, but they're native as far as I know.
Yeah.
Like the only thing really I think is Tetramorium immigrans.
I think that shows it quite well how you live where it's all the laws are locked down. and yet with just hibernation, the invasive species haven't hit you. Mostly haven't hit you.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a big thing. The thing I don't like is people that starts getting crazy over other people that eating natives. Like when I firstly discovered exotics and I kept it, a lot of people were like, "No, it's not good to keep exotics and all of this." There's a lot of hate in the community. I don't know if there still is because maybe I've just zoned out and don't see it. Do you guys feel like there's a lot of hate towards keeping exotics?
I haven't seen too many people argue about it. Most people I see, because I'm in the States, if like I don't really see very many people keeping exotics, but like I know it's generally frowned upon to just break the law at all.
Yeah. What about you, Antti?
Well, I have seen quite a lot of hate from some people, but that was like a few years back. And it does seem to have got a little bit better, to be honest. People have kind of opened up to the idea, or they're just staying quiet. Although I do know a lot of people still have the view, though, that like, if it's not native, like, you shouldn't even talk about it, sort of thing. Which is it's a bit far, I think.
I think that it's just kind of what Ankeeper you are, because Basic Ants, he only keeps native species, and he only keeps quite a very few amounts of species. But he goes into incredible details and studies them and just follows everything they do. And for people like Basic Ants, that's all he needs. And I can totally understand that. But when I put my ants in the fridge, Ants Belgium comes with the perfect comment saying, native and exotics, hibernation is boring. I do love hibernation, because now I only have to take care of half the amount of colonies. But if I only had my hibernating ants, first of all, I could not have a YouTube channel. Second of all, yeah, I would lose interest because they're just in the fridge. I think that's where natives are just losing the battle completely for me. Not only that, exotics are just, to me, exotics are more fun. They grow faster. I've started just recommending exotics from the get-go, in Denmark at least, just because a lot of kids are getting into the hobby through TikTok. And if they're getting a Lasius niger colony and they just look at the 5 workers they get within the first 5 months due to hibernation, everything, they are out of the hobby again. But with a Nicoporensis, they can have 300 workers at the end of those 5 months, and they are sprooming within the hobby.
The issue I'd say there, though, is in 4 months, like, they might have a big escape.
Oh yeah,
it's tricky.
But that's also why I mean, it's a lot of parents are contacting me and asking, "Hey, I have a son," and I always ask how old. 14 years old. All right, okay, so he can study them a little bit. But if they say like 7 or 8, then a niger colony is just not good enough. But then I also explain that, well, I would recommend this species. It requires heat, but they are bigger and you can see what happens. And I will also recommend you buy proper setups, because when I'm talking to the parents, I always just suggest the proper setups. I think where it goes wrong is maybe those like 11 to 18-year-olds who doesn't necessarily have enough money to buy proper setups and go with DIY and then get exotic species. That's where we can go into dangerous areas.
You walk in there one day and they've completely disappeared. I have heard like a few horror stories like that as well, where it's like, yeah, I left them one night, I went to bed, came back next morning, and then they were all gone. And it's like, you better get looking then.
I think a lot of the reason why we in the US and like why a lot of people try to like discourage keeping exotics, at least here, is because like we don't want people breaking the law and then ruining any chance of the law getting lighter. If that makes sense. Like we don't want people doing it illegally anyways, because that will only result in our government making the laws even tighter.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a big part of why everybody is like, no, don't keep exotics, at least here in the US.
Yeah, because I think You said before, or you said in, again, I can't remember if it was on recording or before and after the chats. You said that if you are busted within keeping exotics, you get some hate in the United States at least. If you're keeping like I don't know Mesobarbarus or something. I don't know if. Yeah.
When our friend Formicast Durka, when he was sent his Mesobarbarus from Utah Ants, no affiliation, he a lot of people really got mad at him because they're like, why would you even accept that? Why didn't you just take and kill him and da 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 da? Well, it's you don't want to kill him. You still love the ants, but like, and I don't know how Utah ants got Mesobarbarus from anywhere because we are quite a bit inland, and I would assume with Mesobarbarus being a hard species to start, from what I hear. Like, I don't understand how he even got that in the first place, but like, yeah, and I don't know if he still has them. It's been a while since I've spoken with him, but yeah, it's he got a lot of hate. He got a lot of people pretty mad at him for not killing them, which is ridiculous in my opinion, but I guess it is what it is for now.
I would like to say I just said Mesobarbarus as a random species. I was pretty sure wasn't in the United States. I wasn't referring to this specific episode, but yeah, that goes some things behind the scenes.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
I think the US laws, though, they're bad, but they're good at the same time because we definitely need a little bit more laws in the UK. Like in the Netherlands where you banned the Solenopsis, that definitely does need to happen here. And a few other species where it's like there's no real, well, I guess there's a benefit of keeping them if you can control them, but most people buying them are probably going to lose control of them at some point, and yeah, it's just a bit dodgy as well.
And you can't really fault somebody for not knowing what they're doing. If they're like totally new, you can fault somebody for going out of their way to not research anything. But like, I think people who keep ants are generally like people who are interested in learning about them for the most part. And so I do think it's possible for ant keepers as a whole to get better at ant keeping, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But that also every time as one new ant keeper comes in, as a guy who makes TikToks and get young children in, I bring in all of these soon to be responsible, but at the moment irresponsible ant keepers.
Yeah.
The big question for me is, and what I've always faced when this, I mean, a few years ago when this exotic versus native was a lot more a big thing. I feel like it is not a big thing anymore, but back then it was, I feel like. And everyone who's like, if you lose the ants, they live fear now and all of this. And I can just sit there thinking it's not due to ant keepers that Solenopsis geminata is living all over the United States, but it's due to the plants being imported and sent around, and it's really the freights and the boxes and just general human activities that have caused, or at least helped the ants swarm around the world.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that.
The ant keepers are definitely getting kind of the blame for something they didn't start sometimes. Yeah, it's like in America, I think they had a small ant convention, and they had people with like little signs kind of cursing all the ant shops and things.
Oh.
And, yeah.
I was totally unaware of that. I'm gonna look into that after this.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
Me, but it got really, really kind of vicious.
I mean, it makes sense if you suddenly have Solenopsis and you're like, oh, it's the goddamn ant keepers. Damn. Either way, halfway through the pod, we have a new host. Lynn have just managed to join after selling some animals or doing something with other animals. Either way, Lynn, hello, welcome. What are your thoughts about exotics versus natives? To put you on the spot.
Well, pretty much that. It's always It is, and it has always been a pretty hard subject, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely have. What team have you? When did you start keeping exotics?
Well, it depends a little bit if exotics is like not in your country, or if exotics is like from a whole part of the world, whole other part of the world.
That's also true because here in Europe, we just Metabarbarus isn't even native, but I don't count them as exotics. But I guess if you follow the American laws, they're not from my state, so they're also exotic. So when did you get your first colony outside your own country?
That would be Messer and I actually still have the chat in my phone where I bought them off this other guy. What's he called? Let's see. Over here. And then we need to go to the start. So that is August in 2019 was my first Messer which was my first official exotic.
And how many ants did you keep prior to that?
I think I kept, well, of course, the first Lasius Niger colony, and then another Lasius Niger, and then another Lasius Niger, and then I think another Lasius Niger. And I think, I'm not sure if I kept anything else at the time when I started with Messer Barbarus. I'm not sure.
I think we'll take the round. We'll file the same question for Jake in a second. But did you then make a spatial decision? Did you think about it when you actually went for your first proper exotic?
No, he was posting the picture of the queen, and she was bicolor, so she was beautiful, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I want this. So that's pretty much how it happened.
Then the colony after that, your first like proper African species, I need to eat whatever. What did you have any thinking before you went to get the first like Camponotus floidanus colony or a proper exotic ant?
Oh, that would be my maculatus, I think. And that was actually, he was showing a pictures also, and they have this beautiful coloration with yellow and black and the spots. And I was like, let me get one. And then I actually started crawling back because I was scared that I would accidentally kill her or she would die or anything, because I wasn't that well known with species from Africa or any other place for that matter. So I was a bit scared, but he kept reassuring me like it would be fine and they just need heating and they're pretty simple. So he just ended up sending me the queen. So that's pretty much how it went.
Oh, so you weren't even thinking of what if this colony escapes? The whole world will be ruined.
No, not at all.
I think it's quite interesting going into the stories. I think we should take the exact same question for you, Jake. When was your first colony you got outside of the UK? Which number of ant colonies was that?
I believe it was Mesobarbarus in about 2018. Although at the time, oh my god, it was a massive decision. Like I was basically for years I'd just been like, I didn't realize there were other ant keepers and things like that, and ant shops. Like there was one ant shop when I started, and it just sold kind of Lasius niger pretty much that I knew of. So yeah, I just stuck with those for years, and I'd catch them in the nuptials and get Myrmica as well. And eventually, yeah, got to Mesobarbarus, but I didn't have a clue. I was like, I don't want to get exotics because I don't know, they're going to need like completely different care and it's going to be really difficult. But yeah, I just got them in the end because they were $1.99 and I just couldn't resist. But it was a massive decision at the time.
Opposite Lynn.
Yeah, I was proper worried out of my mind.
Yeah. And what was then the first colony you got that was proper, not from Europe, proper exotic?
That's a good question. That's too specific a question. Let me open me box, see what I've got in here.
Oh, you can't even remember it.
The Fedole Noda, are they native to Europe or not? It might be those.
I don't think they are. They're
Oh,
Asian,
maybe
right?
those then. Yeah, they might be. I think it'll be Fidole Noda then. After watching Hood's videos and thinking, yeah, I can do those. But after I'd got the Mesa Barbarus the first time, there was no decision really. I wasn't
No.
worried at all. It was a slippery slope.
Yeah, I think for me I think I was to be honest, I'm the worst case of an ant keeper. I just my first colony I bought it because I really wanted ants. I got them, I got bored, I dumped them outside. All the worst thing, I left the hobby. I saw some more videos and I ordered a Camponotus Vegas and a Mesobarbarus from a store, and I drove over and picked them up, and I just started without thinking that Camponotus Vegas and Mesobarbarus weren't even native to Denmark. So I just, after my nightmares, I just skipped the whole. I didn't even think about it. And then I think my first exotics, yeah, that was the colony that was donated very kindly by Yulin. And I think I was more as the same team as Lynn. I was more scared that I would not do well than it was exotic. I was just excited to see a completely different species more than, oh no, what if they escape all of this? For where I've had a little bit of loudness in the comments. Oh, by the way, I completely forgot to say this last time as well. We have, of course, a family member listening live in. Just shout out to Simon for listening live in. I think you also listened to the entire episode last time, so just hello to you.
I don't think he's missed one yet, actually.
Oh,
Simon, I think he's been on most of the episodes. He's been here.
He's listening in. Same with Casper. Casper's also coming quite frequently, listening in a little bit live. But Casey, you asked to also be asked this question, so I'm curious to hear what you will answer. But Casey, have you ever gotten anything outside your state?
So no, but I used to think, so when I first got into it, I didn't realize that honeypots were native to where I live.
Yeah.
And so I was like super hyped when I found out that that was a thing, and I really started going out of my way to get those. And then I also thought that Pogonomyrmex barbatus, the big red harvester ant, I didn't know that those were native to my state either until I found them both. So that's the closest thing to exotics. I thought they were only native to like California, Texas, a little bit more arid regions. But yeah, so I have those two now, and that's the closest thing to exotic ants that I've got.
So when you say it makes me pop a question. Who decides that it's an exotic ant? Because can't you just set out your Arda Mexicana, let them loose, and say, "Oh, we have Arda Mexicana now. Now they're native." Since you didn't know the barbatus were native, how is there like a list you look up, or how do you know it?
So far what I have done for research is, yeah, I've Googled it, see what's native here, and then I'll scroll through a list of scientific ant species like names and figure out what looks cool and if it lives here and if I could possibly catch it. And then so yeah, I don't really know who decides that. I think whoever the scientist who studies it is.
Yeah.
If I could have any species outside of my state, I would really like some Novomessor like yours, because they are only one state border away from me, and I can't have them. And I also can't have Trapjaws. I really wish that those were like, I feel like they could live here. I feel like they might be here, just no one's seen them. And that could definitely just be me dreaming. But there's a few things that are native to my country that I can't have because it's not native to my state. And plus, like, I would really like to have some Harpignathus or some bull ants. I mean, everybody outside of Australia wishes they could have bull ants. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I wish I could have.
It's just kind of sad. It's kind of sad to listen to all of this. Yeah, because the only thing of all was that you just said I can't get is bull ants, mostly because they're so damn hard to export and actually get them alive to Europe. Now I know it's a totally other topic of actually getting the ants through shipment, and then they die on the way, and then if they just had stayed at their own country, maybe they would still have died anyway. It's just crazy. If you go to Tyler Ants, so how does it work with the permits? If you go to Tyler Ants, can you buy every single ant he sells because he has the permit, or do you also need to have some permit to actually be allowed to buy them?
So when I bought my ants from Antopia USA, he applies for all the permits, and so the permit has to accompany the ant during shipping. So you know how you get your little sticker that's on the outside of the box that has your address and all that stuff? Well,
Yeah.
next to it on the box is like a little pouch with all the APHIS paperwork in it. And I keep saying APHIS, it's APHIS. It stands for something. I can't remember what it is. But I think that paperwork has to accompany the ant through shipping.
And then the next big question is how as Rich also said in the last podcast, he gets 100 queens, and the person who opens it counts 100 queens. He can't see if that maybe one of them has a darker head and it's a different species. It sounds like it sounds very weird, because if they just misplace the species, then would it ever be checked if you know it's a different species? I mean, again, it's breaking the rules, of course, and it's not something we would recommend here at the Antpod. It's just so much more trouble to go through, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, if you had the paperwork, like, do you have to have, like, say I bought something hypothetically that was an illegal species, and it was sent with the proper paperwork, but for the wrong species, like, I don't know who they get involved at that point to confirm or deny what species it is. But all I know is that the Environmental Protection Agency in the US can take away your car if you catch too many fish. And so they don't play games when issuing fines is what I know, and I think that's the main reason most people abide by the law.
Yeah. It's expensive to don't, or to not to do it.
How much does it actually cost to kind of buy like the permit? Do you have to pay for it, or is it just paperwork?
I think it's just paperwork.
But it's also a yearly thing, right?
I have to ask somebody, but as far as I know, it is just paperwork.
I'm pretty sure you also have to redo the paperwork every year or every 3 years. I don't know where I know it from, but I'm pretty sure I've been told that. So you have to reapply for the permits every so and so dates. Although I don't know. I can hear. I wasn't told that by Casey. I can hear that now.
Yeah, no, I'm not totally sure. But I would imagine you would have to reapply every year, if not every couple of years, for the paperwork.
Yeah, that's just expensive. Or not expensive, crazy. It's just so much work. And sitting and scrolling through the comments, it is a lot of people saying if you live in the area where exotics are safe to keep, it's all right because winters can kill them, and all of these things. Is also the other way. Team Native, you know what habitats they live in, you know what they eat, you know what if you are from Europe, you can get a break from them in a few months doing hibernation. I don't feel like I was expecting to get some crazy comments like, no, don't do that. But it just feels like the hobby has kind of moved past this point compared to a few years ago, which is just great. I don't know if you guys, if we have talked a little bit about it, and we are becoming closer and closer to the end. Anyone with ant news, or shall we just skip this week's ant news again? Again, it's kind of a up and down thing. Anything special happened during any of you guys this week?
You want the Mesocephalotus update?
Oh yeah, oh yes. Let's hear the experiment update.
Well, I've received a brood boost.
Hang on. Yeah, I was about to say start from the beginning.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, the beginning, like last week, I've boosted my Mesocephalotus queen with Mesobarbarus brood because her own nanitic died and she was left with one larvae. So I was a little bit worried because this is a very expensive ant, of course. And I was like, why not? I'm just gonna try. Boosted by Mesobarbarus. If she does not like it, she will probably eat it, and that isn't that bad because then she has like. Then she gets stronger, I guess. But she didn't mind. She actually adopted the pupae as her own, and they have enclosed. And there's now Mesobarbarus minors, mostly, medias, actually, mostly running around, and a few minors, which are so tiny that she doesn't even notice them. And they are taking care of her larvae. And then we had this other guy, this other ant keeper with a Mesocephalotus, and his queen died. And he was like, yo, do you want to brood? And I was like, oh, hell yeah. So now I have also Cephalotus brood in there. And the Mesobarbarus is actually taking care of that. And now we have a Mesocephalotes worker. And they don't mind at all. The Mesobarbarus are actually cleaning the Cephalotes worker and are taking care of her. And they do very well. They've also made bread for the queen and for the larvae. So it's going very well right now.
I think we should dedicate an entire episode to hybrid colonies. Because I've also heard some crazy stories from Wakushi with his Ligniperda. And I've had some poorly experiments with some of my colonies. It's very fascinating to hear you talk about it.
We have this guy called Antcheck, and he's actually made, I'm not sure which species it was, but he boosted it with Sanctus and Nicobarensis and I think Parius, and I'm not sure what else, but it was a really mixed colony.
In other words, we need to get that guy, Antcheck, on the show. I've been wanting to get him on the show for a bit, so that's perfect opportunity to get him on the show. I would also say that initially I was planning to do a episode 25 special next week. I think we'll push it to episode 30, and then if anyone has some good special episodes they want to fire away, I'm thinking what are they called? What is it called? Formicast did the whole episode where there was like a panel with 10 or so people just chatting. It's all chaos, but wonderful chaos. If you guys, the viewers, want to hear something similar to that, please do let me know. Because I don't think I prepared a little bit too late. I don't think episode 25 will be that special episode, but maybe episode 30. Casey, do you have any ant news?
I do have some ant news. So as I mentioned, or I'm not sure if that'll make it to the end, but as I mentioned, I was watching Clint's Reptiles on YouTube, and he happens to be from my same state, so support for him. But he went to South America to go look for snakes and things, and while he was there, he actually highlighted a wild leafcutter colony, and that was pretty interesting. He followed their little ant trail to where they were getting the leaves, and then he followed it back to their nest and showed their nest entrance and kind of talked about their role, where they live, and things like that. And it was super interesting. So I'll definitely be sure to link that on my Instagram.
Wonderful. It doesn't have to be ant related. I mean, that was ant related, but yeah, we are at the point where we don't have that many ant news because the hobby is simply slowing down, which the NNN news master should also know. Antimatters, have you had any ant news? And again, Antimatters, you should be able to always say something just because you run a news show.
Yeah, I should really. Although personally, I'm getting some Acromyrmex tomorrow, so I'm well excited for that. Take 2. So can't wait to get another little colony of leaf gutters.
And why is it take 2, Jake?
The first queen, she arrived dead, and it was so sad as well because I'd got my hopes up so high. And I opened the tub and I was like, yeah, and looking at all the workers, and then I noticed like the little queen curled up, and yeah, she was dead, and it was like, no. So getting a replacement colony, which is great. And I'm really hoping this time it all goes well.
Yeah, the best of luck to the next colony.
Before we close out, I would like to say that nothing I said in this episode regarding laws, I am not 100% sure about. That's just as far as I know, which could be totally wrong. Do your own research.
Yeah, I feel like it's something we need to say, and then again, it's obviously that we don't. It's quite obvious that we don't know everything, but yet again, I feel like it's something we need to say. I also thought I don't know if Solenopsis were banned in the Netherlands. It may also be a neighboring country. I just read that they were banned in one of the European countries, if not all of them. Something was banned with them at least.
All of them. All of Europe.
Okay.
Solenopsis geminata, Solenopsis invicta, and something we call the dwarf fire ant, which is like a different species that I don't remember.
So they've all been red listed.
Yeah.
All right, then I did remember correct, or somewhat correct.
I think I have it over here. Where is it? Ants, mammals, birds, fish.
I was very impressed, Lynn, how quickly you found out how when you got your first Mesobarbarus colony. I was like, oh no, how long is this going to take for you to find the covenant? Boom, 2019, that date, August 7th, if I'm not wrong.
Also, I just had to scroll up. Oh, it is Solenopsis geminata, Solenopsis invicta, Solenopsis richeri, and Wasmania auropunctata. Those are all banned in Europe.
And that is the entirety of Europe.
Scroll up. Yes.
Yeah.
European Union.
Fascinating. Well, you learn something every day. For my ant news, it's all gone downhill again. I've had quite a fight with my Carabaramites, and the mites have managed to invade other colonies. They've been discovered on my Nikos now, and I've ordered none less than 20,000 new hypernastic miles. So hopefully one of those 20,000 can help get the mites away, the bad mites. Saying that, guys, that has been it for this video podcast. Any final words from you, Jake, regarding today's topic?
Definitely start native if you can. That's all I'd say.
Wonderful. Casey?
Well, his audio dropped out.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, Lynn, final words?
Can you say the question again?
Yeah. Any final words about the topic of today? Native versus exotics.
Ooh, yeah, I haven't been here for that long, so
No.
Yeah. I think if your country has a strong winter, don't be too afraid with what you keep, as long as you don't break many laws. I guess.
That ending. All right, Lynn is very aggressive there. Casey, are you here, or have you just completely disappeared? All right, Casey has dropped out. All right. Well, I'll go the opposite way of antimatters, Jake, and I would say that it's not at least here. The thing is, just natives can be so boring, as many people also have said in the response. They can be incredibly boring, and yet, Jake, we haven't even talked about your latest Niger colony, which exploded from 1 year. Can you explain that really quickly?
Oh yeah, so basically over winter I started by picking out the strongest queen I had it was about 30 queens, because she's native you can catch loads of them in a nuptial flight and pick out the strongest one, but I picked out the strongest looking queen and brood boosted her a little bit, gave her a few workers as well that had come out of a couple tubes where the queens had died. So she started off with maybe, I don't know, I'd say about 30 workers worth of extra brood and a handful of workers, like extra. And over the year, she's now at about 700 workers, I'd say. And they they're a proper active little colony. The best Lasius niger colony I've ever grown, personally.
And
But,
how
yeah,
old are
they've
they
done-
again with 700 workers or so? How old are they?
They're literally, so they're 1 year and 1 month. I think to the day. I caught them on October the 10th last year.
That is insane.
Or
That is
9 days.
insane. That is how to not go within exotics. Just experiment with the natives.
It's a good point.
Casey's audio have dropped out, like Lynn said. But with that being said, guys and girls, that has been it for this podcast. If you have enjoyed listening to all of us chat a little bit, be sure to share this with all of your friends and family, at least Anki. And with that, you will hear more from all of us at the Antpot next week.